Hello, you amazing little marketing bees. You're tuning to episode 49 of the Marketing Buzzword Podcast.
This is the Marketing Buzzword Podcast, the podcast where we dissect the world's most common marketing buzzwords. Hold on tight. We are about to fly around the beehive to see the latest buzzwords that stuck to the marketing bees.
Hello again, and welcome back to the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. This is the podcast which helps you to understand what all these business and marketing buzzwords actually mean and how they can be helpful going forward. I'm your host, Ben Roberts, and in this show, I'm the marketing bee in charge of making sure I can get on the right guests and ask the right questions to make sure that these words and phrases actually make sense. But today's show, we're going to sort of do something a little bit different. I'm going to do this episode, we're going to do another episode in a few weeks' time. And it's looking at actually how we can build a personal brand around a specific or potentially multiple buzzwords. And in a few weeks' time, we're going to look at, from a different perspective, how we can do this as a business. So in terms of how as a business we can align ourselves to a marketing buzzword. So, in this episode, I'm going to sort of break down a number of different things in terms of how you teach it, how you align yourself to it, and actually how you can discover and actually how you can own a place around each of these marketing buzzwords. So, if you are enjoying the show as well, please do leave a review on iTunes. Really appreciate it. We haven't had a few reviews for a little while yet. Please, if you are enjoying the show, take a look at on the marketingbuzzword.com website. John Asperian has done an awesome video on there which shows you how simple and easy it is to do. Right, that's more enough about me and the show. Let's get on with the show. So, I want to start by talking about buzzwords in terms of making it something that you stand for. So it could be something that you've read about, something you believe in, something you believe you could be an expert in. Something that you think will add some value to other people's lives. You've got to stand for that term. You've got to make it known that you're the person you're in the best possible place to guide people through this term and make sure that they understand it, because as soon as you can help other people understand it, you become recognized with your own authority. And you need to do that by defining things. And that's what not enough people do when they start trying to become maybe an expert or try and position themselves as an expert in something. They don't define things. They don't make it simple. They don't make it clear. Because there are so many different terms and ways of saying and doing things. So you've got to be able to give yourself, your customers, your audience, some clarity as opposed to what exactly you are going to be talking about and what they're going to get from it. You can contextualize it too. And by that I mean give people some practical ways, gives people some context around where they'll see the buzzword, how it will be used in action. Again, like use some examples. Help people give it almost like a frame of reference, because when people just hear things and they can't seem to associate it with their everyday work or everyday lives, they'll turn off. And once you've defined something and contextualized it, you just need to go and teach it. And I mean that is teach it. Give examples, demonstrate it, pick it apart. Really important. You've got to be able to help people understand where their learning can be put into practice. You give examples of where it's been done well and done poorly. Demonstrate it. Give them. Look, this is what we did here. It's almost like case studies again. Examples don't have to be necessarily long case studies. Like, look, this company, what do you associate with them? Okay, they're associated with this. That's an example. A demonstration or a case study can go into a lot more detail. Pick some of those apart. Look at, try and copy them, try and imitate them. If they're really good, try and find out what their failings. Do a little SWOT analysis. Try and understand what other companies or personal brands and what other people out there are doing this thing already. Also, you need to. It's really important that you understand what your audience know. You need to probe, because if you're trying to teach something but they're already at that baseline, then they'll get bored. If you're trying to pitch yourself as a high-level, high-functioning expert, but your audience are at the beginning of their journey, it's going to be too much for them too soon. You have to understand your audience, probe, and understand where they are in their journey. And when you start finding something that you stand for, you started teaching, you started adding context, examples, people will start to know you for it if you have a back catalogue of content and ideas around that term. Essentially, that is what it is. You say, I believe in loyalty marketing, I believe in relationship marketing, social customer service, whatever it is. And you do all those little steps in between. People then understand, because then they look back and they just go, oh, I've heard about, say, Dan Gingis for social customer care. And then they'll look back and they go, oh, he's got a great back catalogue where he's been on podcasts, he's been talking about this subject, he's been doing it, he's been providing examples, clarity. That is a really important thing, because then it gives that trust, that backdated trust, that you've not just popped up and done one article about this term, you're actually making it something you stand for. And it's also really important on another sort of section, really, that you put personality into a personal brand, and because people like people and come back because of people. It's rare that there is ever a brand new idea anymore. There's all taking bits from one person or another, one blog or another, but your personality says so much about you. It helps you become memorable, because when you're memorable, people remember you. It literally is. It's one of those things. People, I hear that you'll talk about, oh, be memorable. Why? Because people will come back. Well, no, it's because they'll actually remember that you provided great information and help in the past. Your personality is engaging. People like people who are like them, or they like certain types of personalities because they keep them involved, because they love things. So, for example, let's give an example here with say Andrew and Pete with the video content. It's great content, it's amazing content, but there is, for example, there's probably a load of other ways in which you could present the exact same information. That information isn't particularly new and groundbreaking. Some of it is, but most of it probably isn't new and groundbreaking. But the way in which they deliver it at their personality means that they're so effective in what they do. And your enthusiasm is replicated by your audience. If you sound down in the dumps and don't sound enthusiastic, happy, sound like you want to be there and want to help people, then your audience will notice it. Enthusiasm is something that can't really be faked. Yes, you can sort of put on a little happy smile, and you can sort of run around the stage a little bit, but still, true enthusiasm, that seeps through, and it's something that with your content you need to put your personality into it. There are just so many blog posts and articles out there where it's just mundane and bland and vanilla and beige, all these sorts of terms. And be enthusiastic. If you love your topic and you really believe that it can help people, show that enthusiasm. And something else that people have asked me about in terms of buzzwords, which is something that I've had to do a lot of thinking about myself, and it's about whether you coin your own or use an existing term. So, for example, you can coin your own. So this is the process of making up a term or using a term in a new way and using that as a buzzword and starting to talk about it. So, for example, Chris Messina, Uber executive, talk about conversational commerce. We can look at people like Mark Schaefer, content shock. So almost if you hear the term content shock, you associate it probably with Mark Schaefer, because he was the first person to sort of use that term, and that was something that is an incredibly popular piece of content still. Then you can use an existing buzzword, so you could use anything, like, I don't know, It could have been email marketing back in the day. It could have been social media marketing back in the day. It now could be data-driven marketing. It could be user experience. It can be live streaming, live video. Difference is people follow existing buzzwords. They follow them in their hashtags. I mean, for example, LinkedIn with their new hashtag, where they're really encouraging hashtags, so you can follow posts that use these hashtags. That is amazing because people are following those, so it means they more like to see your content. Whereas if you coin your own, you have no existing following, and you also have a ready-made existing audience when you use an existing one. Whereas you have no existing pre-made audience when you're coining your own, because people have never heard that term before. They don't know what it is. Again, especially if you coin your own, you have to go back to what we talked about right at the start of this. You have to define it and make it simple, clear, contextualize it, teach it, give examples of it. However, if you coin your own, you have low to no competition. You can become the dominant person in that space quite quickly and quite easily. Whereas you have pretty high competition with existing buzzwords because people already started talking about them, and you're no longer that. I'm trying to think when that term disappears from your head. You lose that first mover advantage, and then you become you're going to be first to market and get into that market while there's low or no audience. But obviously the risks are much higher because people may not discover that buzzword, or you can go for a ready-made audience where people follow it already, get that, but lose that first mover advantage. So once you've decided whether you go coin your own, and we go back to what we said at the start about teaching it and contextualizing it. With that teaching bit, I really want to expand on that a little bit more. In terms of, think of always as someone who's trying to talk about buzzwords or a buzzword or a term or trying to help people, is to think of yourself as a teacher. And remember, it's not about you. You're an educational tool. You're an educational tool for these people. You need to use different teaching methods. So, for example, different teaching styles: video, audio, kinesthetic. Do people want to see people want to see this? Do people want to listen to it like a podcast? You can create your own space and place, which we'll cover in a little bit, but you have to be able to teach it and use it effectively. If your audience is a visual audience, then maybe an audio podcast probably isn't the way forward, because people will tell you, do audio podcast, do this. But if that's not the way in which you can best teach, or the way in which your audience can best learn, then there is not a huge amount of point, potentially. So videos are amazing because they can give you instant visual representations of what's going on. But obviously people have to be focused, and they have to be short, sharp, deliverable, quick, actionable, because otherwise people move on. With an audio podcast, people put them in their ears, but you have to be quite engaging in order to be able to get people to keep their attention on you, because there is so much else going on there is so much more going on out there in the world. Kinesthetic people who are hands-on. Do you have to do practical workshops for those sort of people? Do people need to do workshops or conferences? Is that how they best learn? Because, I mean, to be honest, if you listen to a load of podcasts, you could get the same amount of content as you do from potentially some of these conferences. Not all of them, but some. And you need to stay true to yourself as well, because it shows if you're trying to force things. You're trying to pigeonhole yourself in a medium, or trying to teach something in a way which you're not comfortable with. You have to be comfortable with what it is. Convey your enthusiasm. People love passion. Again, it shows. People will sit up and listen if you show that you care. Show that you care and you're teaching it. It's not about you, it's about them. Are you offering that value? Ask questions of your audience. Especially if you're doing live streaming. Live streaming is an amazing way of being able to get that instantaneous feedback. Ask questions. See what they want to do. See what they want to learn about. What are their struggles with? What are they doing well at the moment? How can you, as someone who's trying to teach people about a buzzword or a term or a phrase, How can you make it easier for your audience? And also remember that the best teachers know that they're not the font of all knowledge. They don't try and BS people. They don't try and not listen to anyone else. They don't listen to other ideas. You aren't the font of all knowledge. Other people have other ideas, other examples, other experiences when it comes to different buzzwords and terms, and where they can put it into their own they can contextualize it in their own way, can give a new example that you've never heard of before. It's really important. And it's also, when you're teaching as well, it's important to understand the differences between the style you need when you're going live versus a non-live medium. How do you know that you are going to be right? Now, it takes trial and error, but the way in which some people are more naturally geared, I believe, towards live, and other people more geared towards non-live, because some people have all the knowledge there, but necessarily can't get to it straight away, which means they may not be for live. Some people waffle a little bit, and they need to do non-live stuff to be able to make sure that they can get to the point quicker. With live stuff, you need to be able to have like a minute or two at the start of just general chit-chat to be able to get people logging into the show so they don't miss any of the actual content itself. This stuff is sort of really important to understand. What are you good at? What are you not good at? Because pigeonhole yourself into live video. I think it's great that more people are doing live video, but it isn't for everyone. So if you are not inclined to do it that way, there are so many other mediums and spaces and places to look at, which we'll cover a little bit later. And the other thing I really want to talk about in terms of teaching is something called sort of framal learning, and it's about putting things in from their point of view. How do your customers look at it? Again, this is where the questioning comes in, and where it's really important. And this is some of the stuff you'll sort of notice that I'm repeating. Is when you teach stuff, it's how do they look at it? What do they want to know? How is this going to benefit them? Sure, it's great that you wrote 4 top tips to do this, but is that actually going to benefit their lives? Are they going to get something new, interesting? Are they going to get some sort of value from it? Are they going to enjoy the read? How are they going to look at it? Always look at framing that learning. So framing that buzzword, that term, that phrase around their lives, because then they'll contextualize it much easier, which means they'll understand it better. When you are teaching some of this stuff, it's really important that once you've questioned your audience, you start to build up an understanding of who they are, what they want, and what they want to learn, is that you really go deeper. Because anyone can talk about that top level stuff. Anyone can scratch the surface. 6 ways to do amazing content center communications. 5 ways to make your digital marketing strategy amazing. Yawn. It's something that you can read anywhere. And look, there's none of those that I see are particularly original anyway. They're all copied off someone else. They're all just done by people who are not long in the marketing sphere, and it was like, oh, we'll go and write that because that'll be a really great thing, and there's some great SEO that, no. There are so many blogs you can copy, and that's great, but it does not convey knowledge or authority on a buzzword. You want to tell your own stories, ideas, and give your own examples, because if you're talking about this, you would have found a way in which you came to love this buzzword, you came to know this buzzword, you could believe in this buzzword. Share that story. People love stories. People love to be able to buy into the person that's teaching this. So for me, for example, talking about how I was sat at a conference and I basically started playing bingo with these different buzzwords. That is an amazing thing, because people love to hear that that's how my not obsession, how this thing started around the Marketing Buzzword Podcast. They like to understand where it came from and where it's going. And these stories are unique to you. It's what makes you a thought leader, not a thought copier. Unique, deepness, examples. That is what makes you a thought leader. That's what different. Remember, the difference is leader. If you're going to have that first thought, you're going to have those ideas, that context, those examples that no one else has got. They help people understand, because anyone can copy, but not everyone has got the same frame or reference that you do. Become T-shaped. I love this term, T-shaped marketer, and I talk about the people in my marketing team all the time. It's about having that broad top-level understanding of what a lot of marketing terms, phrases, strategies, how they all work. Because if you don't understand that they even exist, or just sort of understand a little bit of context around the rest of marketing, how are you supposed to go deeper on a topic? Because you want things to feed into that, but you have to be specific over something. Whether it be a marketing strategy, whether it be a buzzword, whether it be a specific tactic, whatever it is, you're going to go deeper in your knowledge on something. And that's when you go deeper on your knowledge, again, you can, as you start going deeper on your knowledge, you're providing more unique value to your audience than they've ever had before. The value is in the depth, but it takes time to work towards that depth. If you think about a T-shaped, how small is the top level bit compared to the drop down? It's usually, say, roughly half to a third the size. You have to go deeper, because that's where the real value is, but it does take time. And unlike a T, it isn't necessarily a straight line, but you are going to be heading in that direction. Now, one of the things I said I would cover later in the show was about your place and your space. So where you're going to plant your flag. How can you own it? What's your place? Are you a podcaster? Do you do videos? Do you do speak at conferences? Do you just do little workshops? Do you blog on LinkedIn? Do you all these different things? Do you just do live videos on Snapchat? How are you going to own that? Is it right for you? Can you do it consistently over time? And that's one of the big things that kills people. People go, I really want to do live streaming, but they know, and I was like, but then they're like, oh no, I've got to miss this week because my kid's got football practice. Or I'm on holiday this week, so I can't do that. But no, I'm on holiday this week again. Think about it. Actually, yes, that may be an amazing medium for you. But if you can't be consistent and do it over time, is that right? And as I mentioned earlier, can you effectively teach people over that medium? Because, for example, audio podcasting isn't for people because they but may struggle with how you have to contextualize things on this. Whereas they may find it much easier than me to do it on a video, because they're able to, the way they present things is just very different. Some people love public speaking, doing workshops and conferences. It's not for other people. Can you effectively teach people in that medium? It has to be one of those forethoughts. And I think it's something that people don't give enough thought to. When people are at conferences and events, I say, do podcasting, do video stuff, and it's like, okay, that all sounds great, but sometimes it's just not the best way for you to be able to teach people. Just because it's hot right now doesn't mean you have to jump on it right now. Maybe that frees up more space in another market for you to be able to own. And then something else to think about, which is something that is talked about, is, are your audience even in that space and place? I know this is something that people talk about all the time. For example, you said with Snapchat and Instagram with millennials and Gen Zs. But yeah, it's finding your audience. Make sure that their audience are in that space and place, because if you can't effectively teach it in a medium and your audience aren't there, why are you trying to bother? So for example, if your audience are not on Snapchat and you aren't able to convey your message effectively through live, why are you doing Snapchat videos? If your audience doesn't listen to podcasts and you can't really teach the audio medium because people can't see you and can't buy into your enthusiasm because you think you got a really monotone voice and don't sound very exciting, then maybe it's something not for you. It's an interesting one as well, because when you enter your space and place, you'll find sometimes that you're entering a really saturated market. So, for example, the blogging sphere, potentially highly saturated because of where the amount of other channels now available. And the second thing is just generally because people move on to different platforms. So at the moment there's a big hype around videos and stuff, and I don't see live video being as effective as it is amazing. It's amazing, but I don't see it being as potentially as effective. I could be wrong, but I'm happy to sort of be proved wrong on that. And I think once you've planted your flag so we've now planted our flag, we know which mediums we're going to do, we know where our audience is, we know we're going to go deep on that subject, we're going to contextualize the term, we're going to make it simple, we're going to clear it, we're going to define it. It's important to look at actually some poor examples, and let's look at some poor examples. And I was thinking, should this section be about specific people who are not doing it right? And I thought, no, it should be about the way you do it. And I'm going to use a quote here from a pretty older song now, and it's about from Fun Boy 3 and Bananarama, and it basically says, it ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it, that's what gets results. And I know that sounds awfully cliche and a bit corny, but it really is. It's the way that you do it that's what gets results. As hard as it can be, don't do just what's easy for you, because that might not be the best thing for your audience. And that's one of the biggest poor examples, things that are done poorly, when I see people trying to own a buzzword or a phrase, or trying to give something that they stand for. People lack planning as well, especially on live videos. Is people go, I'm going live, and then they literally just stop like that. And there's a lack of planning. What are your audience going to get out of it? What are you actually going to talk about? How long are you going to do this for? Are you going to ask for questions? I think this is getting better. Generally, as these mediums start getting more popular and slightly more mature, people start doing them a lot better. But when they first come out, everyone's like, oh! People are like, there's a lack of structure sometimes on these. There's a lack of structure sometimes on these mediums, because people are just going out there and saying, I'm going live, I'm going to talk about this, and then there's no natural follow through. There's no natural line of progression and learning as you go through the video or stream, whatever it is you're doing. And people take too long to get to the point sometimes. It's just like, there is nothing worse when you end up watching a 10-minute video that could have been done in 2 minutes. So especially the longer the video goes on for and the less points there are, the harder it is to stay engaged, because you're not getting anything. You feel like you're not getting anything out of it. You have to be able to get to that point reasonably quickly. Don't keep people hanging on, because people are busy. People will only get annoyed if you leave them hanging on. And going back to what we said earlier, don't be bland, vanilla, beige, boring. Just don't be boring. Add some personality. Personality is a real winner. Some people just write stuff, put personality behind it. Videos, audio, videos, podcasting, radio, blogging, whatever it is, whatever medium, whatever form, whichever space and place you decide to choose to own, you can use your personality, and you should use your personality. Now, there are two other bits I really want to go into in this sort of episode, and it's to become an author. When you're becoming an authority, I believe that consistency is core. I don't believe it's king. I don't believe that it depends on where we come from in terms of our standpoints. I don't believe that if you miss a tweet, it's not the end of the world. If you missed a podcast episode, it's probably not great, but it's understandable. I mean, if there is context, because it's really difficult to be 100% consistent 100% of the time. And so I don't believe it's king, but I do believe it is core, and I believe that you build everything else around your consistency. The more consistent you are, the stronger core you have, which means you're able to do more stuff outside. You're able to add more strings to your bow. If you can't do the main thing you want to do consistently, how are you supposed to be trusted to do anything else? How can people believe that you are as good as you say you are? And that's why I believe consistency is core. Remember again, to build authority, it's not about you. Thought leadership isn't regurgitating someone else's words. Consistency over time in a specific space or place, answering the questions your audience are asking, is incredibly important. We're seeing, we're doing a recap of all the stuff that we've talked about already. It takes time. There isn't a short road, but your road doesn't have to be terribly long either. It doesn't have to be a 4 or 5 year process for you to be starting to be seen as an authority on a subject. For some people, it can be as quick as a year. Some people can start building up a small audience within months. But you will see, the more consistent you are over time, the more words and phrases you cover, the more content you put out there, which is truly thought leadership, you'll find an audience and build around there. There are no overnight successes. Overnight successes are made over a number of years. And sometimes it can be hard to balance new trendy buzzwords with longevity, but it is possible. By thinking longer term, you can act now. So a game is like a game of chess. Every step counts, and each movement leads closer to the end. Now, this is where I'm going to lead on to the final section I really want to talk to you about, because I think this bit is really important. Because ultimately, trends change, terms change, and it's okay to pivot. Because just because you are trying to become an expert on a buzzword now, or you're trying to work in a specific place or space. So, for example, if you were a Google Plus person, or you particularly talked about, print marketing. I mean, it's still around, but it's nowhere near got the effectiveness or the reach that it once had. It's okay to pivot off those, as long as you're not doing it regularly. I mean, people expect change these days. They're not going to hold it against you because you went from working on Google Plus to working on LinkedIn. People aren't going to handle it. Yes, you might lose some audience, but you'll pick up a new audience. In some ways, you have to do it, or you'll get left behind. There are always new terms. There are always new mediums. Meerkat, Periscope. People started doing loads of that, and then they died away, like Brian Fanzo. But then he's kept his audience and moved on to different platforms, doing different things. Communicate your change. Tell your audience why. Reduce the confusion. Be clear and concise. Do it in your medium. Do it in your personality. And try not to be abrupt and just stop. If you just stop and don't communicate things, that's when people don't start to lose trust in you and that you can deliver, or that you're able to provide what you said you can provide. You have to communicate your change. Again, when you pivot, before you pivot, you'll have a ready-made audience. Yes, you may lose some, but it's much easier to build a presence on a new platform. It's like launching a new business. They say, build your audience and then you launch a business, because then you have people that are already interested in your product or your services when you come to launch your business. Otherwise, you're launching a business and people don't know about you. They don't know you from Tom, Dick or Harry. Having that ready-made audience, because you've built it on another platform, is great, because when that platform starts becoming less popular, you can transfer over a fair number of your audience. And I guess it's a bit like, when we talked about that, it's a bit like why I crowdfunded the publishing of my book, Marketing Buzzword to Marketing Authority, which the crowdfunding campaign is just finished for. It's because I'm building my audience through the podcast. And that audience was then able to sort of pre-order a copy of my book as part of the pre-order campaign. To make that book a reality. And pivoting doesn't have to be a whole new direction. It can be subtle changes. It can be adding in more video and then to transition over to video from podcasting. It could be from blogging to podcasting. It could be moving from Twitter to LinkedIn, or maybe moving to actually posting on Medium or posting on Facebook articles. All these sorts of things are something you can think about. Is what are you most comfortable in? Where can you best teach? Where is your audience? All these questions you need to keep asking. And that is really how you build a personal brand around a buzzword. And yes, actually, a lot of these examples you could probably take out to non-buzzwordy examples. But I really thought this was an appropriate episode, because we're nearly 50 episodes to sort of talk about actually how you build a personal brand around a marketing buzzword. And when we do another episode in a few weeks' time, we're going to be looking things slightly differently again. We're going to be looking at actually how you build it from a business, how you associate marketing buzzwords from a business perspective. And we'll be doing that, we'll do that sort of in a couple of weeks' time, and sort of looking at how you can build personal brands within a business context and how you can expand it out from there.
This podcast is part of the You Are the Media Network.